This happened a week ago. I wanted to disconnect from everything, so I decided to go camping deep in the woods. I'm 34, work as a software engineer, and thought this would be a nice break. I picked a quiet spot by a creek and set up my tent just as the sun began to set. It felt nice at first. The only sounds were the gentle rush of water and wind through the trees. It made me feel peaceful. After cooking dinner, I crawled into my tent. As I tried to sleep, I was suddenly jolted awake. I heard footsteps outside. My heart raced. I listened closely, hoping it was just a deer or some animal. But the crunching leaves sounded deliberate. I tried to shake it off and go back to sleep, but something felt off. By morning, I had almost forgotten the noise. I hiked around, enjoying nature. The trees were massive, and the air was fresh. But when I returned to camp, I noticed something strange. There were unusual symbols carved into trees surrounding my tent. They looked like strange letters or markings. I couldn't figure them out, but they made me uneasy. I told myself it was probably just local graffiti and moved on with my day. That night, I sat by the fire. I felt a knot in my stomach. As I stared into the flames, I noticed movement in the distance. I squinted, but when I walked to check, no one was there. A chill ran down my spine. The forest felt heavy with silence. I went back to the tent, locked the door, and tried to convince myself I was imagining things. In the morning, I realized things were missing. My flashlight vanished, and my knife was gone. I searched the area, feeling anxious. I thought maybe I misplaced them. But I kept thinking about that figure I'd seen last night. While I searched, I thought I saw something dart behind a tree. I hurried over, my heart pounding, but again, nothing was there. It felt like time to leave. On my last night, I was on edge. I listened for footsteps again, but all I heard was quiet. Then I thought I heard whispering, low and almost melodic. I peered outside, but there was nothing. I told myself it was all in my head, but as darkness fell, I could feel someone or something watching me. The next morning, I was shaky while packing up. I felt like the woods were alive with eyes, and I couldn't shake it off. When I finally left, my body felt heavy with dread. I drove home with my mind racing. I kept thinking about those symbols, and that last night. I never saw anyone else out there, and I can't explain what happened. It lingers in my thoughts like a shadow. I wish I could understand it, but I can't. I arrived home and sank into my couch, exhausted. The campground still haunted me. I switched on the TV, trying to drown out the silence, but I couldn't shake the strange feeling. Every creak of the house made me jump. I thought the worst was behind me, but it wasn't. The next day, I decided to research the symbols I'd seen. I sat at my computer, my fingers moving nervously over the keyboard. I pulled up images of various tribal markings and ancient scripts. Hours passed as I scrolled through pages, but nothing matched what I had encountered. Frustrated, I dropped it. Maybe it was pointless. Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was a message from my friend, Mark. He wanted to grab a drink. I thought it would be good to talk about the trip, so I agreed. I needed a distraction. At the bar, I explained everything to him, the symbols, the footsteps, the feeling of being watched. Mark laughed at first, thinking I was joking. But when he saw my serious face, the laughter faded. "That sounds creepy, man. You sure you weren't just imagining it?" he asked, skeptical but curious. "I wish I was," I replied, swirling my drink. I felt so vulnerable out there. Mark suggested we go back to the campsite together. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to forget it all, but another part felt drawn back. I could tell Mark wanted to see it for himself. Eventually, I decided it would be better with company. We made plans for that weekend. The days dragged on until Saturday morning. The drive felt different this time. I was anxious, and the weight in my stomach returned. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was heading into something I didn't understand. When we finally arrived, the sun was setting again, casting long shadows across the trees. I felt a mix of nostalgia and dread as I parked the car. Mark was animated, excited to explore. I remained quiet, feeling the air close in around me. We set up camp quickly and decided to take a short hike before dark. As we walked, I pointed out the symbols etched into the trees. Mark frowned, studying them. "What do you think they mean?" "I don't know," I responded. "But they seem wrong." Just then, a rustling sound broke the silence. Both of us turned, eyes wide, scanning the thick trees. I glanced at Mark, who looked just as shocked. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Before I could respond, we heard the whispering again. This time, it was clearer. It seemed to call us. I felt the hairs on my neck stand on end. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. "What is happening?" Mark's voice trembled. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around us like a swirling fog. I felt cold, too cold. That knot in my stomach tightened all over again. I glanced around, desperate for any sign of danger, and when I saw a figure lurking in the shadows. Someone or something was watching us. Panic surged through me as I grabbed Mark's arm. "We need to go back now." As we sprinted back to the campsite, I could still hear the whispers trailing behind us. I didn't want to look back, but I felt a pressing urgency. Who or what was out there? When we reached the tent, I fumbled with the zipper, my heart racing. Suddenly, everything went dark. I stumbled forward, my eyes searching through the gloom. The darkness pressed in, making it hard to breathe. "Mark?" I called out, but my voice felt swallowed. I could sense Mark close by, but I couldn't see him. "Here," he replied, managing to inch beside me. I felt a rush of relief, but it faded quickly. My mind raced as I pulled my phone from my pocket, hoping the flashlight would pierce the shadows. As I pressed the button, the dim light flickered, illuminating the inside of the tent. What should have brought comfort only increased my fear. The shadows danced along the walls, twisting at odd angles. I caught a glimpse of Mark's pale face. "What just happened?" he asked, voice hoarse. "I don't know," I replied, trying to steady my breathing. "But I think we're not alone." The whispers had quieted, but an unsettling silence filled the air. Mark's eyes darted around, scanning for movement. I felt the urge to speak, to fill the void, but I couldn't form the words. Suddenly, a rustling noise came from outside the tent. My heart dropped. It was a different sound this time, heavier, as if something was dragging itself close to us. I squeezed Mark's arm. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," he whispered back. I could sense the panic rising in him, just as it was in me. We huddled in silence, the noise getting closer. It felt like a heartbeat, gradual yet relentless. I took a shaky breath and mustered the courage to poke my head out of the tent. The beam from my phone swept through the darkness, but only revealed trees, their branches swaying gently as if nothing was wrong. Then I saw it. In the distance, deeper in the woods, another set of symbols marked the trees, glowing faintly in the dim light. My skin prickled. "Look!" I pointed, and Mark leaned in, squinting. "They weren't here before," he said softly, fear lacing his voice. It was true. I had memorized the first set, but those were different, more intricate, more urgent. What did this mean? The rustling came again, and I pulled my head back in, suddenly grateful for the tent's thin barrier. "What do we do?" Mark asked, panic in his eyes. "Stay quiet and wait," I replied, though I didn't believe it myself. It felt like a never-ending nightmare, and I was too afraid to move. Moments felt like hours, and all we could do was listen. The noise had stopped, but it left an unsettling void. I glanced at Mark, his eyes wide, reflecting my fear. Then I heard it. A whisper, piercing through the silence. "Come closer." It felt as though it wrapped around me, pulling me towards the darkness outside. "Did you hear that?" I gasped. Mark nodded, trembling visibly. Before I could fully process the situation, the noise returned again from outside, crunching, scratching, and then the tent shuddered softly, as if something had brushed against it. I held my breath, unable to make a sound. My grip tightened on my phone, and a sense of dread washed over me. We couldn't see it, but whatever was out there was getting closer. That's when I realized the symbols weren't just markings, they were a warning. And we were too late to heed it. As I struggled to comprehend it all, a sudden crash came from the edge of the campsite, and I jumped, heart racing. "What was that?" Mark gasped. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here now," I said, grabbing the zipper with shaky hands. I pulled it open, heart pounding, and stepped outside into the night. The shadows seemed to hold their breath, and the whispers grew louder, drawing me deeper. But I resisted. We needed to find a way out, a way to survive this night. But nothing could prepare me for what I was about to encounter. The moment I stepped outside, the cold air hit me like a wave. My heart raced as the whispers grew louder, swirling around us. I turned to grab Mark's arm, but he was still in the tent, eyes wide with fear. "Come on!" I shouted, pulling him toward the tree line. The visibility was poor, my phone's light barely pushing through the oppressive darkness. The trees swayed around us, their branches casting eerie shadows on the ground. I felt disoriented, every direction looking the same, but those symbols in the distance kept nagging at me. I had to get there. "Why are we going deeper into the woods?" Mark whimpered, his voice shaking. "Those symbols," I replied, my voice low. "They might lead us to safety or suddenly." A rustling sound broke through the night again, but this time it wasn't coming from the bushes. It felt heavier, almost like footsteps pounding on the earth. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. "Do you hear that?" I whispered, glancing back toward the tent. Mark nodded, eyes wide as he pressed closer to me. "We shouldn't be here." We stood rigid, listening. The crunching continued, moving in a rhythmic pattern, almost like it was circling us. Fear coursed through my veins. I was certain something was out there, something that didn't want us to leave. Before I could think, I took a step forward, the instinct to explore pressing down on me. "We need to figure this out, Mark." I started toward the symbols, and with each step, I could feel the weight of eyes watching us. The trees seemed to close in, and the whispers morphed into a low humming, like a warning tune that made my skin crawl. "We have to turn back," Mark said, pulling my arm. But I couldn't. The call of the symbols was stronger. I pressed on, brushing past branches. The glow intensified as we approached, pulsing against the darkness. Just then, a piercing cry shattered the night, echoing through the trees. I spun around, breath quickening. What was that? It came from behind us, Mark shouted. His voice trembled as he pointed back. Before I could reply, the unmistakable sound of something heavy crashing through the underbrush erupted. I could see shadows moving just out of reach, darting through the trees. Panic seized my chest. "We need to go now." We turned to run, but before we could take another step, I felt a cold wind sweep past us, followed by a whisper, clearer this time. "Stay." Mark darted forward, urging me ahead. "Don't listen." We stumbled through the trees, branches clawing at my skin as we tried to escape whatever was after us. Each crunch of leaves behind us felt like it was getting closer. I couldn't look back. Fear paralyzed me. After what felt like an eternity, we fell onto a small clearing, gasping for breath. The trees seemed to grow thicker around us, closing in like a cage. I pointed my phone light around, desperately searching for escape, but only darkness met my eyes. Then, we saw the symbols again. More than before, and this time, they pulsed with a strange, ominous light. "That is not possible," Mark whispered, trembling. "It's like they're alive." But before I could respond, the ground beneath us shook. A low growl resonated through the air, vibrating in my bones. I looked at Mark, and we shared a moment of understanding. There was something ancient and dangerous in those woods, and we had provoked it. "Run!" I cried, and we darted back into the trees. But the growl followed us, relentless, echoing against the shadows. I didn't dare to look behind me, but I could feel it, whatever it was gaining on us. That's when I tripped, falling hard onto the ground. My phone tumbled out of my hand, and the light flickered off. In complete darkness, I gasped, panic surging through me as I realized Mark was no longer beside me. Then I heard the low whisper, so close it felt like it was in my ear. "Stay with us." I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding. "Mark!" I shouted, voice cracking. I had to find him. But this time, the darkness felt different, more alive. And then I felt a presence creeping in. Something was watching me. Something that had been waiting. I pushed through the dread pulling at my heart, searching the trees for any sign of Mark. My breaths came in shallow gasps, every noise magnified in the stillness that surrounded me. The whisper returned, curling around me like smoke. "Stay, Mark!" I yelled again, forcing my feet to move. I could sense the darkness shifting, and with every step, the weight of it pressed against my chest. My mind raced, and I began to replay every moment from earlier. How did we get here? What were those symbols? I stumbled into a bramble, thorns scratching at my skin, but I pushed through. The pain was nothing compared to the fear of being left alone in the suffocating dark. "You have to be here somewhere." I half sobbed, half shouted, praying he'd answer, and then I heard a sound in the distance, muffled and frantic. It was Mark's voice, lost in the chaos of the woods. "Help! I'm over here." Adrenaline surged through me, replacing the icy fear. "Mark!" I called, directionless but fueled by the sound. I forged ahead, dodging branches and shadows, desperate to reach him. As I drew closer, the echoes of the growl began to subside, a low rumble fading into the night. Then, I came to a sudden stop. Ahead of me lay another clearing, illuminated by the pulsating light of the symbols. This time, they were arranged in a circle, forming an intricate pattern on the ground. In the center, just beneath the light, I saw Mark kneeling, his back to me. "Mark!" I yelled, relief flooding me. But he didn't move. "Please get up." Finally, he turned slowly, and the sight stopped me cold. His eyes were wide, but they lacked recognition. There was something eerie about them, almost vacant. It was like he wasn't fully there. "Come here," he said, voice unnaturally calm. "It's safe." I took a step back, heart racing again. "No, it's not. You need to come with me." I could feel the tension in the air shifting once more. The symbols glowed brighter, and the whispers swelled around us, a cacophony of dozens of voices merging into one. "Stay with us," they chanted, and I felt the ground vibrate. "Mark, please," I pleaded. But he seemed entranced, slowly inching toward the center of the circle as if drawn in by some unseen force. Panic surged again, piercing through the mist in my mind. "You can't go in there." I rushed forward, grabbing his arm just as he was about to step into the circle. The moment I touched him, a shock ran through me, cold and electric, like I'd touched something alive. Suddenly, Mark's eyes refocused, and he blinked at me in confusion. "What are you doing?" "They're trying to take you," I shouted, clutching his arm tighter. "We have to get out of here." But even as I said it, I felt the darkness closing in again. I could feel the presence swelling like a storm around us, urging me to let go. Before I could react, The symbols flared brightly, and I pulled Mark behind me as a barrier formed an invisible wall pushing against the air. "Look!" he gasped. "They're moving." I turned, and to my horror, I watched as the shapes within the glowing symbol shifted. They began to morph, creating outlines that looked almost like figures. They rose and twisted in the light, reaching out with shadowy hands. A scream caught in my throat. "Run!" I screamed again, and this time, we didn't hesitate. We sprinted back into the trees. The figures erupted from the light, howling as they chased us into the dark. As we raced away, the whispers subsided, but not the urgency of the presence behind us. Just then, a flash lit the night sky. I skidded to a stop. What was that? But there was no time to answer. Another growl ripped through the air, louder than before. My heart sank as the shadows blended together, rushing toward us, consumed by the dark. My breath caught in my throat. Whatever it wasn't finished with us yet. I sprinted deeper into the woods, branches clawing at my arms as I dragged Mark along. The growls grew closer, reverberating through the trees, shaking the ground beneath us. "This way!" I shouted, yanking him toward a narrow path veiled by dense foliage. We stumbled together, tripping over roots and fallen leaves as panic coursed through us. Whatever was pursuing us felt like it had teeth, gnashing through the darkness. Suddenly Mark stopped. "We can't just run blind," he said, his voice fraying under the weight of fear. "Do you have a better idea?" I retorted, trying to keep my voice steady. I could hear the figures behind us, their whispers clawing at the edges of my sanity. There was a sense of urgency pushing us. We had to find anywhere safe. "Maybe we should go back to the symbols," he suggested, breathless. "They have to mean something." "No!" I nearly shouted. The idea of returning made my skin crawl. I could still picture the mournful eyes and reaching hands. "We need to find a way out of here." A moment later, the ground beneath us shook violently. The air thickened, and a dark mist swirled around us, coiling like a serpent. I could feel its pressure, heavier than before. It was pushing us towards something, and I didn't want to find out what it was. I glanced down another path, this one barely illuminated by the faint light of the moon. "Mark, that way," I urged. We took off again, every stride fueled by adrenaline and fear. Just as we cleared a patch of bramble, we broke into another clearing, this one eerily peaceful, bathed in silver moonlight. But something felt wrong. The silence was thick like the air before a storm. "Look!" I pointed toward the center. A pile of stones sat arranged in a circle, almost like a shrine. But these stones were covered with the same symbols, the ones that had drawn Mark in before. I felt the chill run down my spine. "We need to keep moving. This isn't safe." Before he could respond, I noticed something glimmering in the moonlight beside the stones. My curiosity got the better of me. I stepped closer, and when I saw it embedded in the earth was a small dagger, its blade reflecting the light like a beacon. "An offering?" Mark mused, his voice barely above a whisper. "Or a warning," I replied. I reached down to grasp the handle, and the moment my fingers touched it, a flash of heat surged through me. I dropped it instantly, stumbling back. "What was that?" Mark asked. "I don't know," I said, my heart racing. But it felt wrong. Behind us, the growls escalated, deep and guttural. The darkness shifted, and figures began to emerge from the tree-line. Their shapes coalesced, morphing into the same outlines we'd seen before, but this time, they seemed more defined, more real. "Run!" I yelled again, dragging him back the way we came, but the paths I'd taken before seemed to twist and turn in on themselves. "Where do we go?" Mark shouted over the rising terror surrounding us. "Anywhere but here." Then everything went dark. The shadows enveloped us, swallowing the moonlight and the trees. I could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on us in the blackness. The howling grew closer, echoing in the void. Fear settled in my gut as I spun, trying to find a direction, only to feel Mark's hand slip from mine. "Mark!" I screamed, the sound swallowed by the darkness. The world narrowed, and I was alone. I had to find him. I stood in the suffocating darkness, isolated and terrified. "Mark!" I called again, but my voice felt small against the weight of the void. There was only silence in reply, thick and oppressive, as if the woods were holding its breath. I took a step forward, but the ground felt unstable, shifting beneath my feet. Panic gripped me. I needed to get out, to find Mark, but I couldn't see anything, not even my own hands in front of my face. I turned in circles, desperate to catch any flicker of movement or sound. Then I heard it. A rustle, barely a whisper of movement, but my heart leapt. I pivoted toward the noise, hoping it was Mark. "Mark, is that you?" I croaked, my throat dry with fear. No answer. Just the ominous growl in the distance echoing off the trees. What if the darkness had swallowed him? What if he was hurt? I clenched my fists, trying to push the thoughts away. I couldn't afford to think like that. I decided to push through the thickening darkness, extending my arms to feel for any branches or obstacles. I stumbled on a root and almost fell, but caught myself. The growls were closer now, mingled with an almost gleeful cackling that sent chills down my spine. I pressed my back against a tree, clutching my breath. Think, I muttered to myself. The dagger. It must have meant something. I bit my lip, trying to recall its intricate symbols. Could it be a way to protect myself? Or summon something? Suddenly, a brief flash illuminated the treeline. I squinted, heart racing. It was just a moment, but it was enough to see a figure just outside my vision. It moved, fluidly slipping between the trees. Instinctively, I followed, my heart pounding with both fear and hope that it was Mark. I pushed ahead, darting between the trees, branches whipping at my face. Each step felt like time stretching, like the forest was eternally wrapping around itself. I finally burst through a thicket and into another clearing. This one was different. Instead of moonlight, a strange amber glow filled the space, illuminating crude carvings etched into the bark of the surrounding trees. They weren't the same symbols, but they were unnervingly familiar. "Mark!" I called again, louder this time. But still, the only response came from the growls, more intense now. The air shifted, electric, and I felt a wave of heat roll over me. Then it happened. A figure materialized before me, shimmering in the amber light. Its face was obscured, but I could make out those mournful eyes, the same ones from the stones. I stumbled back, instinctively clutching the dagger I had seen earlier, though I had left it behind. "Mark!" I shouted, instinctively covering my head with my arms as the figure began to whisper. The voice was low and melodic, piercing through my terror. "You sought the offering, now it seeks you." I felt the ground shake beneath me again, and everything tilted. The clearing began to spin, pulling me in. I fought to stay upright, dread settling in my stomach. I had to escape this. I had to find Mark. A piercing scream cut through the growing chaos, a sound so raw it was too human. It echoed in the trees. Fear shot through me, and with no plan, I sprinted toward the source of the sound. "Please let it be him," I urged under my breath. But as I raced through the trees, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was lurking in the woods had no intention of letting me go. The sound led me deeper into the woods, my heart hammering with each swift breath. I dashed from tree to tree, navigating the underbrush like a starved rabbit caught in a trap. The growls had changed. They were no longer distant murmurs, but chillingly close, like they were right behind me. I dared not look back. "Mark!" I yelled again, my voice cracking. Each shout felt like an offering to the darkness, a beacon that only brought more danger. Whatever was out here was hungry, and I could almost feel it trailing me, eager to catch up. As I pushed forward, the ground beneath me was littered with fallen branches and scattered leaves. I stumbled again, but this time I went down hard, scraping my palms against rough bark. Sharp pain shot through my hands, but I quickly pushed myself back up. I couldn't stop now. I had to keep moving. That's when I saw a flicker of movement ahead, something darting between two trees. I paused, breathless. The figure was small, almost human-like, but not quite. It moved with the same fluid grace as the previous apparition. My gut twisted, telling me to run, but curiosity anchored my feet. "Is that you, Mark?" I tried again, stepping forward cautiously. The figure stopped, turning its head just slightly. I felt a chill race down my spine. It was Mark. The creature, it had shimmering skin, like a reflection of the amber light around it, and those eyes, wide and unblinking, staring straight into my soul. Without warning, it made a shrill sound, a mix between a laugh and a wail, cutting through the oppressive atmosphere. Instinct kicked in. I turned and sprinted away, branches eager to claw at my flesh. In my escape, the air thickened with a heavy scent, blood, musty and sweet, wrapping around me like a shroud. I pushed hard, following faint trails through the dark, each one merging into the next. As I ran, more growls erupted, the sounds twisting into something almost sinister. Whatever was chasing me, or whatever I was fleeing from, was gathering. Suddenly, the ground opened up beneath me, a small pit hidden by underbrush. I fell, tumbling down into a cramped hollow. Pain coursed through my body, but I rolled until I hit the bottom, breathless and dazed. I lay there for a moment, listening, waiting for the chaos above to settle. When I finally dared to glance up, I saw a soft light peeking down. The flickering was familiar, now mingled with a sense of urgency. It was more amber glow. I inched toward it. Cautiously, I crawled until I could see the outside world again, but what met my eyes was shocking. The clearing above was no longer the eerie space I had encountered earlier. It now pulsed with that same haunting light, but was surrounded by figures, more of them. They swayed rhythmically, chanting in unison. My heart dropped, confusion washing over me. That's when I heard it again, the piercing scream, echoing through the night, but this time, layered with terror. This was different from before. It felt like it was being directed at me. I blinked hard, the realization hitting me like a heavy blow. The figures weren't just dancing, they were summoning something, or someone. And I knew then, from the despair swimming in their eyes, that what they were calling forth was not what I had hoped to find. I needed to get out of this pit, and fast. But when I scrambled to my feet, the weight of the woods felt heavier than before. Every shadow threatened to envelop me as I stepped back into that haunting light, unsure of what awaited me above. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I prepared to pull myself out of the pit. The rhythmic chanting above tugged at my instincts, urging me to flee. I peered into the clearing and realized the figures were surrounding a circle of soft glowing stones set into the ground. A chilling energy emanated from them, casting shadows that danced around their feet. I could feel a growing sense of dread pulling at my chest. I hesitated, knowing that staying here was dangerous, but running back into the woods was just as terrifying. I couldn't bear the thought of becoming part of whatever was happening above. Suddenly, the chanting changed. The voices grew louder and more insistent. The figures closed their circle, their movements becoming frantic. My instinct screamed at me to escape, so I gripped the edge of the pit and climbed up, using my arms to push myself out. I was almost free when a sharp pain shot through my leg. A thorny vine snagged onto my ankle, pulling tight like a predator's grasp. I yanked hard, feeling the prick of thorns bite into my skin as I finally tore it away. I stumbled backward and fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Looking up, the figures had turned their attention towards me. Their eyes glimmered with a mix of curiosity and fear, making the hair on the back of my neck stand up. One stepped forward, a girl with hair that looked like tangled branches. She lifted her hands, and the others fell silent. My heart raced. What was she doing? Help us, she whispered, her voice barely carrying in the stillness. You must help us stop it. What are you talking about? I stammered, confusion overtaking me. Who are you? But before she could respond, a sound erupted from the woods, a low growl escalating into a thunderous roar. The figures flinched but did not scatter. They simply stood there, awaiting something. I felt an icy dread settle in my gut. They're coming. Please, you have to. The girl tried to say more, but the roar drowned her out. I didn't want to find out what was coming. Instinct took over, and I bolted. I dashed into the trees, branches tearing at my clothes. The growls grew louder behind me, and I could almost sense the darkness cutting through the air. I had to get away. But no matter where I turned, the growling seemed to follow. It was as if the woods themselves were alive, twisting and reshaping to keep me in their grip. I thought I could cut left, but a thicket blocked my path, thorns and brambles eager to snag me. I could hear the girl's voice again, echoing in my mind as I pushed against the trees. You must help us stop it. But help who? And from what? I pushed those thoughts aside and focused on getting away. Then, just as I thought I might find a clearer path, I stumbled onto a small clearing. The air felt charged here, almost electric. In the center, another glow flickered. This one was different. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, and that S when I saw it, a shape moving within the light. Bigger than the figures, darker than the trees, it loomed, waiting. My breath caught in my throat as I realized the chanting had started again, this time faster and more frenzied. I had to make a choice: face whatever was emerging from the light, or go back and confront the strange figures. But I knew one thing. I was not ready for whatever this was. Before my mind could fully grasp it, I spun around. The growls behind me became more insistent, a cacophony of fury and hunger. There was no going back now. I ran, the shadows stretching into elongated fingers reaching for me as I pushed deeper into the dark woods. The sounds of the growls grew closer, chaotic now, mingling with the whispers that seemed to beckon me, urging me to stay, to turn around. It felt like the forest itself was closing in, a sentient being intent on trapping me within its grasp. My heart pounded in my chest, propelling me forward even as exhaustion threatened to root me in place. I couldn't think about Mark, couldn't dwell on the terrified screams or the figure I had seen before. Every moment was a constant reminder of what was at stake. I forced myself to focus on escape. In my desperation, I stumbled into another clearing. Breathless, I skidded to a halt, my eyes darting around, searching for direction. Moonlight pooled on the soft ground, illuminating the area, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a strange sense of peace. But that tranquility shattered when I heard it again, a wail, echoing through the trees, like a desperate plea for help. Instinct kicked in, and I turned toward the sound, unwilling to let fear dictate my actions. As I moved, I saw the unmistakable glow once more, pulsing rhythmically, drawing me closer. I pushed through the underbrush instinctively, every fiber of my being shouting for me to turn back. Mark? I called out, my voice trembling. Just as I reached the edge of the glow, I realized I wasn't alone. The figures I had seen before emerged from the shadows, their faces obscured by the darkness. But this time, they didn't seem threatening. Instead, their eyes held a flicker of recognition, of hope. You returned, whispered the girl with the branch-like hair, her voice calm yet urgent. You must help us. What do you want from me? I gasped, every ounce of desperation spilling out. Where is Mark? Where is he? Panic clawed at the edges of my mind. I could see something moving behind them, a creeping shadow lurking just beyond the veil of light. "They'll come for you," she warned, her tone low and filled with dread. "You must understand. We're bound by this land. It feeds on our fear, our stories. We are its children, and it desires you to abandon hope, to join us." "Join you?" My heart raced as the growls intensified, reverberating in the pit of my stomach. "I don't want that. I just want to save my friend." "Then face the darkness," she urged, pointing toward the glowing heart of the clearing where the shadows coiled and twisted. "The choice is yours, but take care what you find may change you forever." I hesitated, the weight of her words sinking in. What did she mean? But there was no time for debate. Behind me, the figures were growing restless, losing their patience. With a quick glance back at them, I stepped toward the core of the light, feeling an electric pulse drawing me in. "Where's Mark?" I called out again towards the growing shadows, desperate for an answer. As I approached the swirling energy, flashes of memories flickered through my mind, my time in the woods, the symbols carved into the trees, the whispers that haunted me through the night. What was happening? I took a tentative step forward, feeling the air grow thick with emotion. The ground trembled beneath my feet, vibrating with a barely stifled power that surged around me, and then, all at once, I saw him, Mark, standing alone in the distance, framed by darkness. His eyes were wide, but he wasn't looking at me. He was staring into the shadows, entranced, a ghost in the eerie twilight. "Mark!" I shouted, my voice cracking with urgency. But he didn't respond, as if the very forest had enchanted him, binding him to the spot. A fierce wave of fear washed over me, pushing me past the threshold of the light. "You have to listen to me." But before I could reach him, the shadows shifted, closing in like a predator preparing to pounce. "You must choose," the girl called after me, but I wouldn't let their fate be dictated by shadows. My resolve surged, and I lunged toward Mark, fighting against the whispers that threatened to drown out my shout. As I enveloped him in my arms, the shadows recoiled for just a moment, almost surprised at my defiance. "Let us go," I urged him, pulling him away from the grasp of the ominous glow. For the first time, I felt the pull of hope surge through me, but just as we turned to flee, the earth beneath us shook violently. The whispering grew louder, rising into a chaotic symphony as shadowy figures emerged once again. The girl's eyes widened with fear as she stepped back into the darkness. "You must leave." I held on to Mark tightly, but the shadows surged forward, clawing towards us, and I felt a visceral fear clawing within my chest. "Run!" I screamed, and we broke into a sprint, tearing through the inky blackness of the forest. The moonlight flickered behind us, and the growls echoed in angry pursuit, but we kept moving, tearing through thick underbrush and brambles, fueled by the primal instinct to survive. The whispers faded behind us, swallowed up by the distance, and still, I clenched Mark's hand tightly as we journeyed deeper into the darkness, not daring to look back. Eventually, we burst into a wider space, and my heart soared at the sight of road, the promise of safety lying ahead. "Keep running," I shouted, glancing over my shoulder to see the shadows recede into the depths of the forest, their whispers fading into the night. We stumbled onto the road, breathless and alive. But as we paused to catch our breaths, I felt an unease settle back into my gut, a lingering dread, like a shadow waiting just beyond the reach of the streetlight. The woods loomed behind us, dark and daunting, keeping its secrets close. I glanced at Mark, still shaken, but alive. We had escaped the grasp of the woods, but I couldn't shake the sense that something was forever changed. Those markings, the whispers, this was just our journey. Something larger loomed, intertwining our fates with the dark legacy of those woods. As we shared a look, riddled with relief and confusion, I knew this wouldn't be the end. The mysteries had only just begun to unfold, and echoes of the forest would follow us, lingering like shadows, a reminder of what we had encountered, of the depth of darkness we had barely escaped. Even as we turned away to head for home, I felt eyes on us from the woods, and from an unfathomable distance, watching, waiting, and perhaps still hoping to reclaim what had been lost. I couldn't shake the feeling part of me may be left behind in the dark forever, haunted by the questions left unanswered, and by the choices I would have to make.